Hey, so in this video, I'm going to have a look at 3D printing. So I've got to the stage with our boat monitor. So a lot of our boat monitor has hardware involved in it. I'm going to make a 3D case for it. I've been doing some uh, training on 3D printing with Fusion 360 and Ender 3D. So I think I'm ready to go on this. So I'm going to start off. I'm just going to make a case for a previous project, our LoRa, because it uses an ESP32 board, which is pretty small. Um, and it'll print faster. It'll give me more chance to fix my mistakes. So two things I'm going to print is a Lupincorp logo, which I'll do in a different color, which will go on the front of my case, and then the actual case. The case is based on one that's resizable. I saw it on Andreas Spiess' YouTube channel. It looks pretty easy to use it. I just need to remove some holes, put some new cutouts and standoffs in for my hardware, and then see how it goes. So we'll see how much luck I have with 3D printing.
First thing I want to try with my 3D printer is make a 3D version of my Lupincorp logo. My intention is to have these so I can stick them on the front of the cases that I make. So I'm going to start with the Lupincorp logo that I'd already created in Microsoft Expression Design. Again, this is not a supported application from Microsoft anymore, but works pretty well, and you can still download it and use it. So this is the Lupincorp logo that I created. Basically, to get it into Fusion 3D to do the 3D design, is I need to export it as a SVG file. So I do that. Fusion 360, I start with just a untitled design here. And I've already done this one, so I won't be actually saving this version of the design. So the first thing I want to do is insert that SVG file. So do an insert SVG, insert it from my computer. My exports by default are under my documents, expression design, and this is the one I exported. Just like in Sketch, you choose the plane that you want to export it to. And down here, I also want to flip this so it's the right way up. So that looks good. I'm not actually going to use this for the design. I'm just going to use this as a template when I'm creating the design. So let's say OK. Finish the sketch. Go back to the front. And when I zoom in on this, the reason I don't want to use it as the actual sketch is it's made up of a lot of little components in here, so it's not as easy to do things like scaling and dimensioning because it's made up of a lot of little lines and things all over the place. But it is a good template for me to start the sketch that I do want to use. So I'm going to create a sketch, again put it on the front plane. That looks good. And I'm in sketch mode, so first I'm going to create a couple of rectangles, so just use the same dimensions as my original SVG that I imported. So I have two large rectangles just to be for the main parts of the logo. I'm going to use rectangles to recreate this little logo cross thing here, and also a rectangle to make the L. I'm not going to use the actual lettering because it's going to be too hard to get it look the same. And the other thing is I want to create C's, but I'm going to use arcs instead. So I'm going to go to the arc tool, do a 3-point arc, just choose the corners of the C as guidance. And that looks kind of right. And I think we're pretty good there. So I'll finish. Right, I'll extrude this one. So let me go back to the selection tool, and this one. So it's the actual arc that I created. Let's do an extrusion on that. It kind of looks good. I'll say OK. I'm just going to put a construction line in to line up between here and here. Actually, I'll do it to this, to there. and go back to the select. I'll just change this to a construction line by hitting X. I'm going to zoom in a bit more, and for this arc here I'm going to extend it to the line. Same here. I'll extend that to the line. Same here. This will make a nice looking C. And last thing I need to do is just put in the line segments for these. Okay, that looks good. Back to the selection tool. So most of the bits I want are here. So now I'm just going to put constraints in, dimension the whole thing, and then get rid of that original sketch. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to put a constraint between these two to make them collinear, so they line up. I'm going to put dimensions on all these, so let's dimension this one, so let's just make them all 1 to make it simple. Maybe 1.5. See what 1.5 looks like. 1.4, that's maybe 1.2. So I'm just eyeballing this. Okay. Okay, carrying on with dimensioning. I think it's going to be confusing having the other sketch shown, so I'm just going to hide the other sketch. So the only sketch I'm working on is with the lines that I just created. So I've got enough of. I've just got one line hanging out here. Looks like this is a leftover from the previous sketch, SVG sketch. I don't think there's any others hanging around. Okay. Okay, so if I roll over this dimension here that I created, I see it's called D2, so I'm going to use that same D2 to dimension all the other widths. So let's do that. So I'm going to dimension tool, choose this one. I'm going to make that D2, so that's based on, same here, D2. This length here, so let's trim out some of the bits I don't need. I'll go back to the select tool, click T. I can just take out these little pieces that aren't going to be in the final drawing, and now I can just dimension these 3 lengths in here, and I think I'll do it based on the D's. So let's try that. I'll go to this one, select that, and I'll make that, looks like about D2 times 2. That'll work. I can do the same for this one here. D2 times 2, looking good. And this one here is currently 12. So 1.5 and 12 is about 8. So D2 times 8. Ooh. I wanted a bit taller than that, so let's make that D2 times 10. That looks better. Let's do the same dimensioning in here. D2. Let's see what this looks like. So that's 10, 11, 12, 13. So let's make it D2 times 13. Gets me about the same height. This looks okay. I'm not going to try and play around with that. Let's make the width from here to the bottom line. This one I'll make D2 as well. And from here to there, D2. And from here to here, let's make that one a D2. And that looks pretty good, so I'll finish the sketch. So there's my sketch for my logo based on copying the SVG one I brought in. Let's just save this away. And looks like I got one thing to correct there. So I just do a T again in the sketch and get rid of that. It just looks like those are different lengths, so let's fix up that as well. Oops, just dimension that. I'm going to make that 1, and same here. That's probably a good time to zoom in. Let's try this. 1, and I think this one should be collinear, so let's do a constraint on that. Do select and collinear, this one and that one, this one and that one. Now that looks good. Finish sketch. So just let's have a look at our sketch again. So I added a few more constraints here for the total height of the logo, and then I put constraints based on that. So that one's D20, so I use D20 for the width as well. I use a 3/4 of D20 for the width of this inner rectangle, and I just put a constraint to make sure that this cross always stays halfway between these 2 points. Now I'm going to extrude this, so let's do the finish sketch, and I'll push E for extrude. Now I'm going to select the components I'm going to extrude, so I'm actually going to extrude everything just as one big block for the body. Let's have a look what this is looking like. Okay, so nice big solid block. Let's make it, I don't want it very thick because I'm going to be sticking this on the front of my case, so let's just make it 2 millimeters at the moment. We'll see what this looks like. So that's my first extrusion. I'm also going to extrude this as a cut, this rectangle here. So I'll do another E for extrude, just select that rectangle and go in just 1 millimeter, looks good. And finally I'm going to extrude this cross here as basically a hole through the whole thing, so you can see the background color through it, because I'll probably do the logo in a different color from the rest of the box. So let's do E for extrude again. By default it's a cut. The distance is just all. That looks good. And let's have a look at this. Okay, so that's looking good. That's just what I wanted. So let's save this away as another milestone. So basically I'm going to take this, I'll scale it to whatever size I want. So at the moment it's 24 millimeters. That's a bit bigger than I want, so I can do things like now do a modify, scale, select what I'm going to scale, select the pointer around what I'm going to scale, and let's just scale it, say, by 0.5, and you see the whole thing nicely scales here. Let's not show the sketch, just look at the body, and if we do a inspect on the height here, we now see it's 12 millimeters instead of 24, so it scales nicely. So last thing I need to do with this is just print it out. So let's go to, actually let's go to Tools, Make, so this is going to convert the Fusion 360 3D body into G code that my printer will use to print out the 3D object. So let's just zoom into this a little bit. Okay, so I want to put the back down flat on the printer. So I'll select the object, I'll go to this, I'm going to just swivel around so I can grab the back. Then I'm going to select what face I'll put on the back. That looks good. And then I can just do a slice. And it asks me where I want to write it. Usually I'll have a SD card in here and write to that with the G code, which I can pop straight into the printer. Okay, also do a quick rundown on the custom box I'm going to use for putting our boat monitor into. So this is based on a video that was done by Andreas Spiess. I've got the link down below to make a custom box that you can easily resize and use for electronic projects. And that was actually came from a Adafruit video on using Fusion 360 to make a customizable box. So this is kind of the end of the line. I won't go over all that stuff again, but you end up with something like this. So I actually imported Andreas's Fusion 360 project in here, and you can basically do things like go to the change parameters and change the box to be different sizes. So I'll just change one of the dimensions. You can see the box nicely resizes. A couple of things that Andreas had in it were some holes for putting cables through and mounting LEDs and things, and also on what he called the base had a platform to mount the actual electronic circuit. So for our boat monitor I didn't do that, so I'll just switch over to the case design that I use. So again, most of the outer case is the same as Andreas's one. I removed the platform underneath this lid here and actually put an indent in the top, so that's where my Lupincorp logo is going to go. So that's a 21 by 21 indent here, and you'll see in the video how the logo can nicely fit in there. The other things I did, if I just let's go to the top view, take out a couple of the other things in there. So I added a sketch. So let's just look at the sketch here for the standoffs that in my case an ESP32 board is going to sit on. So I had two standoffs here where I can screw one end of the board in, and down the other end of the box just some standoffs to get them at the same height down there. This was the sketch used to create that the logo indent in the top of the box. And then we look at the end of the box, and let's just show these again and flip it over. Down the end here I put a sketch to make a little cutout for the USB, so you can see the standoffs here in the 3D view and the cutout here. And that's basically it. I'm not going to go into the details of how I sized all these. This is just sort of normal sketching type things. But basically I extruded the sketch up to make a solid standoffs, and this sketch here to do the cutoff, and then in the indent up here for the sketch I just did an extrude to cut a about 0.5 millimeter hole in the top to take the logo. From that I went to Cure, printed the two top and the bottom of the box separately, and we can have a look at the printout in the next. Okay, just have a look at printing the top here. So you can see the indent is still shown as a hole until it starts covering the rest of the print. And out of that, for this top piece, just has to make a couple of clips at the end for where it clips into the actual base. That's it, and just have a look at how we put it together. So I redid the logo in a green this time, just so it contrasts with the white of the box. That goes in the little hole there. I'll glue that in with some super glue, I think. This is the actual ESP32. The holes line up, so I'll put screws in those rear holes just to make sure it all stays down. But let's just see how it all fits together. So the top goes on that, it just clips in, and that's the whole thing, and you can see the hole for the USB there.